Again, we've had some great workshops. We want to thank Mayor, your staff for being out here. Austin Blackman and his team and other people from your agency are doing, I have to say, a terrific job with us. And I want to introduce the mayor. Nobody needs an introduction to the mayor or to Senator Markey. They're both national leaders on climate change. But I want to read something quickly because the mayor said, I have something to say on a couple of these matters, and I think they're really important to the neighborhood and to the nation on Senator Markey's behalf. So we have two great leaders. We're very glad to have them here. And I think what also does is says that East Boston is literally on the map. And Senator, I bet you've been here thousands of times and not known Umana specifically. So we know that East Boston in the old days might say we're more than an airport. And I think the mayor and the senator actually know that. So you're representative of that. And that's why the protections that they want to fight for and are putting in budgets and at what level or the other fighting for in Washington are really important for us. So all the stuff we're talking about today, these are the ears of the people who are going to put it in their budgets and make things happen for us in the community. So let me just read a brief statement about Mayor Walsh on climate change and then Senator Markey. I'm glad they've been able to meet with you. I don't know if they have time for questions. I know they have busy schedules, but I'll let you guys take it from there. But again, thank you both for coming. Mayor Mario Walsh, in the wake of the Trump administration's decision to withdraw from the Paris Accords, Mayor Walsh said, Boston will not stand by given what's at stake. We are committed to addressing climate change head on and will accelerate Boston's efforts to become carbon neutral by 2050. Fighting climate change means fighting for all those affected by worsening air quality, extreme heat, eroding coastlines, issues that will continue to impact residents for generations to come, no matter what their background, income, or place of origin. As mayor, I will continue to work with U.S. mayors and cities around the world to uphold the tenets of the Paris Climate Agreement to protect Boston against the very real impacts of climate change. The city remains committed to reducing emissions by 80% and becoming carbon neutral, as I said, by 2050. Mayor, would you come up and address us, please? We're very happy to have you.
Thank you very much, Phil. And I want to thank Phil. I want to thank everyone in the neighborhood of affordable housing. I want to thank all the board members. Most importantly, I want to thank the young people that are here with us today for the great work they do. What we're talking about today with the environment is about their future. When we talk about affordable housing and creating opportunities for housing, it's about their future and making sure that we keep the city of Boston a place where people can live and work and thrive and raise a family, as many of us have and many of you in this great neighborhood of East Boston, but throughout the city did. And honestly, as well as support our immigrants. We're very proud of our immigrant population here in Boston. 28% of the residents of our city were born in another country. 48% of the residents in our city are first generation like me, which makes us over 75% of us either just a boat ride or a plane ride away from being an immigrant. And I say that because my parents came here in the 50s. They came on a plane, but my grandfather came here. Both of them came here. They didn't stay. They came in the 20s. They came on a boat across the Atlantic Ocean. So it's important for us to remember that as a city. I want to thank some of the partners here: the Green Ribbon Commission, the Bar Foundation, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, the Coastal Zone Management, Woods Hole Group. I want to thank State Representative Adrian Matero, who is a champion in so many different fronts. I want to thank him for being here with us today. We were just talking the other day. We were at an event the other day with Youth Connect, and we talked about bringing over some opportunities for counselors to be in working with the police over in East Boston. And I love the representative because he's focused on the kids. He's working with us on affordable housing. He's working with us on the climate. He understands all the importance. Being a state representative in a neighborhood like Eastie is so important that you have to keep an eye on all of it. You can't just focus on one area. So Representative, thank you for the great work you do. We're joined by City Councilor Sal Martina. As we all know, Sal's days are winding down as a city councilor. But again, we were able to bring the first ever but we made our announcement for our capital budget in East Boston because Sal was so instrumental in making sure that some of the money that was in our budget was actually geared towards resiliency in housing. And sometimes those issues are the same. And I want to thank the councilor for his years of service as a city councilor, and I want to thank him for his work here as well and being here with us this morning, so thank you, councilor. And we're honored, and I'm honored to be joined by, and we're all honored to be joined by our United States Senator Ed Markey. Ed yesterday held what I thought was one of the most important press conferences somebody could hold. He was talking about the opioid crisis in response to what the White House made this big announcement the other day that they were going to tackle the opioid crisis. The problem was there was very little money that came with the tackling of it. And instead of dealing with it as a crisis, he called it an emergency, which means in 90 days that terminology goes away. And anyone in this room, and I know a lot of people in this room, including myself and my family members, when you have a loved one that's dealing with heroin, drugs, or alcoholism, 90 days doesn't get you anything. And it's a shame, and I want to thank the Senator for standing up yesterday to the White House and calling them out on this issue, because as we see it, it's rampant in all of our different communities in the city of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I also want to thank the Senator who's been working on the issue of climate long before probably most of us in this room even thought about it. In his early days as United States, actually probably goes back to being a state representative in Massachusetts. So thank you, Senator, for the great work you've done and do every day for us. As Bostonians, water has shaped our history. It's shaped our economy, and it's the very land that we stand on. Being a port and a coastal city means we have a close relationship with natural resources, and we know how powerful they can be. The residents of East Boston and the residents of Charlestown know it better than anyone else. With climate change and the way we adapt to it, the water around us, it's never been more important than it is right now. We launched Climate Ready Boston. We brought together the region's top climate scientists. I want to thank Austin Blackman and his office and everyone at the environmental office in the city for the incredible work that they do. There's a lot of people here to be announced. I can't mention you all, but please raise your hand, because you guys and ladies have done incredible stuff. We've identified ways to try and stay ahead of these challenges, and now we're making them a reality, starting in the neighborhoods that are most vulnerable. This report is a roadmap. It describes the specific areas that we can take to prepare these communities for the changes ahead and make them more resilient. Today we're going to announce a couple of first steps that we're going to take. Here in Eastie, we're going to focus on Marginal Street and Border Street flood pathways. We will install a deployable flood wall across the greenway under the Sumner Street. This 7-foot wall will protect 4,300 residents, 70 businesses, and critical infrastructure in East Boston. Implementation includes an operational plan for deploying the flood wall in advance of a flood, something that's important for us. Over in Charlestown, we're going to focus on the Sullivan Square and the Ryan Playground flood paths. We will elevate a section of Main Street in front of the Schrafft Center driveway that will block the main flood pathway. This will protect about 250 residences, 60 businesses, first responder, our firehouse there, and Rutherford Ave underpass. This work will be integrated into the Rutherford Ave Sullivan Square redesign project. These steps will be a collaboration between the BPDA, Boston Parks and Recreation, the Boston Transportation Department, and any and all of our community partners, as well as other state and federal agencies as we move forward. These are exactly the kind of climate adaptations solutions that were outlined in our citywide Imagine Boston 2030 plan. We're using every single tool that we have to make sure that our neighborhoods are more resilient. Some of these physical solutions will keep rising tide at bay. Some of them are human solutions. And we know in order to be successful, we need strong community involvement. That's exactly what we have in East Boston and in Charlestown. These communities are incredibly passionate and proactive. More than 400 residents from East Boston and Charlestown guided the design process. They participate in meetings and community events, open houses, and online surveys. Another way these communities are showing up for climate justice is through our Climate Ready Boston Leaders Program. The Greenovate team has trained more than 70 leaders to talk about climate change in their neighborhoods. Many of them are from East Boston and Charlestown. Some of you are here today. It's really heartening to see how dedicated the youth are in this work. And when I talked about these youth that are right behind me, I want to thank them. I want to thank the NOAA Youth Environmental crew for all they do, but I also want to thank because they are the future. That's why we're all in this work. We've seen the devastation earlier this fall of the hurricanes that hit Houston, Florida, Puerto Rico, the Caribbean islands. We saw the damage that was done there. In Houston, the damage wasn't necessarily structural damage, it was flooding damage. And it was an opportunity for us to be able to look at what's happened there and to be able to prevent that from happening here in the city. It can go a long way. These young people are working with us to make that happen. We've worked with Public Works to bring green infrastructure to the Central Square redesign. And as we think about the future of the city, as we design the future, we're going to be looking at all of the different ways of protecting the city. These young people are showing us how to do the work, and they're making a difference, and we're all proud of them. The kind of activism, and the kind of community activism involves us on how to understand and help us with the needs in our community. I want to thank all of you for the work you do here. I want to thank you for creating more green space. I want to thank you for fighting more access to the waterfront. I want to also say the same thing to protect us from floods, heat waves, also benefit communities when the weather is gray. So as we continue to build out the East Boston waterfront, what you're doing there is protecting your community, your town, your neighborhood, something that's really important. This work in Charlestown and Eastie has been a true community effort. It shows us what we're capable of when we work together. And I hope this model for implementation strategies will be allow us the opportunity to look at putting this citywide. I want to thank you once again for everyone who worked on this report. You're the heart and soul into making these communities more resilient. On behalf of the City of Boston, I truly want to thank all of you for being part of this. Our work is just getting started. For us, climate action is about social justice. It's about healthy, safety, and well-being of our community. That's why we're leading the way despite what's happening in Washington. Together, we're going to continue to honor our commitment in the Paris Agreement. And I want to thank Senator Markey for his great work there. We're going to continue to be the most energy efficient city in America, something that we have now for 3 years in a row, something we're proud of. And we're going to keep leading the way in adaptation as well. We're going to continue to find creative solutions to complex problems. We're going to continue to be a stronger city and continue to move our city forward. Turn to our roots, and we will continue to thrive in our coastal environment. I want to end by thanking you all today for allowing us to come here today. Phil, I want to thank you as well and the great work you're doing. And to the people of East Boston and Charlestown, wherever you're from today, thank you. We have to continue this work. This is about the future of our city. This is about the future of our state. And this is about the future of our country and our world. So thank you very much.
Mayor, those are great announcements, and I'm not sure if anybody here is from Charlestown, but if Charlestown were here, I would think they want to give you a hand of applause as well. So let's, from behalf of Charlestown, right across the harbor. Mayor, you did mention some fine people. I also want to mention Rich McGinnis from the BDPA. I always want to say BRA, but Rich, I'll do my best to keep off of that one. Gina Fiandaca from East Boston, Transportation Secretary, is also here, and others who I may not be able to see right now. But I think we can see why the mayor's deserving of a second term, if that's a plug. But in any case, thank you for acknowledging our youth. They are the future of the community, and I think they have a small gift for you as well. Do you not, guys? Can you just give that to the mayor? And okay. A remembrance of the day, Mayor, if you would.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if Oscar Chacon is still here. Oscar, if you are, raise your hand. We're very happy to have heard you this morning. It was a little on time. We're glad that you made a great message, and we're glad to have people who don't always speak English be a part of this effort. It's really important, as the mayor said. Senator Markey, it's really good to have you here, actually. I've seen you on TV for how many years now, and knowing that you've had our backs on climate change and sea level rise and all those things for years has been a real pleasure. So it's a real honor to actually welcome you here to today, not just to say, gee, this is nice and do a stop and a tour, but to be here for, I think, as the mayor's announcement to help protect part of your constituents in the community. So we know you've done a lot. Senator Warren is doing a lot. It's a real pleasure to have you here. I'm going to read a small bio as you come up here, not a small bio, but Senator Markey has been the chair of the Senate Climate Change Task Force. From 2007 to 2010, Senator Markey served as chair of the Senate Select Committee on Energy Independence and Global Warming. I think you've done a lot of work on telecommunications and those kind of things as well. So always on behalf of the consumer, the constituents, I think the senator's been there and has our back. So we welcome you to East Boston, Senator. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Phil, so much. Thank you for everything that you do for the community. To be honest with you, to be here at Mario Umana Academy means the world to me. He was one of my heroes. He was just this incredibly great politician in the best sense of the word, as an advocate, but as someone who brought people together. And that's really what this academy is all about. That's what today is all about as well. Phil, you said, that the mayor is giving leadership now to make sure that Boston is the leader in ensuring that there's a response to Donald Trump pulling the United States out of the Paris Agreement, out of an agreement that the United Nations all expected the United States to be the leader on. But when you look around this room, when you look around this school, what you see is a United Nations of students. You see the green generation rising up across all nationalities here in the city of Boston to be the leaders that Donald Trump is not being, to say that they will not stop. And so we thank all of you. We thank all of the young people in the city of Boston for all of your leadership. And we thank you, Sal, for everything that you have done throughout all of your career, all of the great leadership which you have shown. And Adrian, we thank you for everything that you've already done and everything that you're going to do in this great career which is now unfolding here in the city of Boston. Thank you so much. And to your great mayor, Marty Walsh, who has made Boston the greenest, the cleanest, the most energy efficient city in the United States. He has transformed the city of Boston into one big green monster. That is what this city is now, the leader in every one of those issues. And it is because of Marty Walsh's leadership and commitment to both climate action and economic development that Boston has become the national model in addressing climate change. But unfortunately, Boston and all of Massachusetts are already feeling the devastating impact of climate change and the extreme weather that results. Just a couple of years ago, the current sea level trajectory here was called, quote, Miami Beach in Boston. That's what we're heading towards. Florida might be nice to vacation in the wintertime, but we don't need an historic South End beach neighborhood here in Boston. But unfortunately, many of Boston's neighborhoods and landmarks are built in areas that are highly susceptible to flooding and the effects of extreme weather. Landmarks like Faneuil Hall, Quincy Market, North Station, Van Pier, Copley Church, John Hancock Tower, and the Public Garden are all at risk as temperatures and sea levels rise. Last year, Climate Ready Boston noted that between 10 and 20% of Charlestown, East Boston, downtown and South Boston will face high tide flooding even when there is no storm. And our winters are warming. According to the scientists at the University of New Hampshire, New England winters are now 4 degrees warmer than they were in 1965. In other words, we now have Philadelphia's weather from 1965. We don't have the Philadelphia Eagles, thank God, but we have their weather. And we have to make sure that we now take the actions which are necessary in order to avoid a further intensification of this problem. Boston is the 4th most climate vulnerable city in the United States, and it is the 8th most vulnerable worldwide in property risk. Global warming isn't a distant threat to Boston, it is our reality now. But while the city of Boston is on the leading edge of experiencing the impacts of our changing climate, thanks to the leadership of Mayor Walsh, it is also on the leading edge of preparing for its impacts. Climate Ready Boston is the City of Boston's forward-thinking initiative to adapt to climate change by working with partners at all levels of government, federal, state, and local, and in the private sector. It is working to protect Boston as severe weather and sea level rise create more challenges. We know there is much more to be done, but that's why Boston is already getting started. And that's why this new report released today is so critical. It outlines the stark threat which we face, but it also makes the clear case that the benefits of readying ourselves for climate impacts today far outweigh the cost. Acting now will save tens of millions of dollars in the short term and hundreds of millions of dollars in the decades to come. And we are so fortunate to have Mayor Walsh and his team at Climate Ready Boston Initiative taking this threat seriously and committing to take steps towards a climate-smart future. The planet is running a fever. There are no emergency rooms for planets. So we have to take preventative steps, preventative care to avoid the worst, most catastrophic impacts. That is what the mayor is announcing today in East Boston and Charlestown. And it's just the beginning of what he has planned for this city. It is to put in place the preventative steps that will help to avoid the most catastrophic consequences from impacting negatively this city. Steps like installing a deployable flood wall in East Boston's Greenway and elevating a section of the Main Street in Charlestown and additional flood protections for the area and elevating parks and pathways at Mario Umana and Shore Plaza. Projects for long-term planning in Charlestown will also be hugely important, like redeveloping Shraff's Center waterfront and elevated parks, nature-based features, mixed-use buildings. We cannot ignore the impacts of climate change on our neighborhoods, but we can plan for them even as we work to cut the pollution that is causing our world to warm. Sadly, the leadership in the White House and at the federal level deny the clear and present danger of climate change. But Donald Trump's climate science is as bogus as a degree from Trump University. We know that he is dependent upon the Koch brothers for his science. He calls it a global warming hoax, but in the next 30 years, it is estimated that for 210 days a year, his Mar-a-Lago resort will be flooded by at least a foot of water. Mar-a-Lago will become Mar-a-Lagoon. Maybe then he will understand the danger that Boston is facing, the danger that all of these coastal cities in the United States and around the planet are facing. But no matter what lies and misinformation the climate deniers try to peddle, the facts are still with us. The economic opportunities are also with us. The moral authority is with us, and Mayor Walsh is with us every single step of the way to put in place the policies that make Boston the global leader. We need global climate leaders like Marty Walsh more than ever. Without leadership at the federal level, we will need our cities to take the lead, and that is what Boston does best. So I thank the mayor for his leadership, for his partnership, and working together, not just as the leader for the world, but the leader in every single neighborhood in the city of Boston to carefully craft a plan for each neighborhood to give them the protections which they are going to need. So we thank all of you for your leadership, and so let us now make sure that the United States and the world understands that Boston is the leader. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Senator. I think the Senator said something at the end that resonated with me. There are two elected officials, but we're all leaders in a certain way. So we have people that we need to put up there who have great values, who represent what we want, what we need, what we're going to do, what the communities want to do. And you hear diverse voices throughout the world. So we have two great people at the top, and then there's us who are a little bit lower in terms of the elected scale, but that's where it comes from, the power that comes from the people who have good ideas, who want to make something happen for the neighborhood, and are certainly going to be doing it in Boston, and in East Boston specifically, Mayor. Thank you very much for that announcement today. I have one small announcement, and it addresses a question that came earlier. So the mayor's been great on climate change. We're not going to deny that. He's been very good on housing. We thank him for all the investments that he's actually made. He doesn't know this yet, but last night NOAA bought what we would say is our 10th purchase of a 3-family in East Boston that will preserve 3 more tenants, actually. And it was the willing sale of a seller who wanted to move out at a certain point, but they didn't want to sell to somebody who could have made it condos. They wanted to sell and keep it their residence there. So this is now the 10th purchase we've made under the mayor's what they call acquisition opportunity program with Sheila Dillon and that particular program. So we hope to do a few more. We've got a couple in the wings, but the mayor's done a great job on housing. That's part of the answer to Scarlett's question earlier. The mayor cares about all of us, I think, at this particular time. I know you guys have a schedule to get to. I don't know if they want to take any questions, but if you're open for questions, then there may be 5 minutes or less from the audience if anybody has anything to ask before we break back into the workshops. I know it's going to be hard to follow the energy and the power and the eloquence that comes from these particular gentlemen, but what would you might have to say? Mayor, Senator, anybody?
Yes.
Part of dealing with climate change is getting people out of their cars. I know that we're all anxious to see the Boston Harbor Now study be finished in regards to the Boston Harbor Ferry, and I'm just wondering if any conversations have happened with the Senator about possible federal funding to encourage water transportation.
I mean, I think there's a lot of conversations with the Senator, not just on water transportation, but other infrastructure as well. I think the United States, the President talked about having the biggest infrastructure bill in the history of the country, which was over $1 trillion, which we were excited about. But on one of the days he was doing one of the executive orders on immigration, he took away local hiring options. So when I think about that, I think about money that's coming in, which we're excited about, but I also think about job creation, which I'm excited about to help people find a job, like when President Obama did the stimulus bill, the economic stimulus bill, if he was fixing crosswalks and things in our city, and we had people working in it. So this White House actually is putting a bill up but not taking local hiring away. What does that mean to your question? That means that we need to continue to work a plan. I think my own personal opinion is that the federal government, and I'll let the Senator talk to himself, but the federal government, the state, and the city need to work together. We need to continue to improve and upgrade the MBTA, and we have to start thinking about the future of the MBTA in the sense of it's diesel right now, but it's going to change to electric. We should start to build that infrastructure right now in the MBTA. And I think that, Adrian's a state representative. I spent 17 years at the House. You don't have $10 billion for infrastructure improvements there. So what we really have to do is work collectively with the 3 branches of government. I know the Senator's there. I'm not sure this White House is there.
Yeah, thank you. The mayor put his finger right on it. We need a national infrastructure bill. In other words, we need more money for the city of Boston, for ferries, for mass transit, for sustainable development. and the president says he wants a $1 trillion bill. We want a $1 trillion bill. We're waiting for the president to propose so that then we can begin the negotiations on that bill, but ultimately we have to get the money back to Mayor Walsh so that he can partner with the community to put in place strategies in every one of these transportation areas that create jobs but also protect the city long-term from climate change.
Hey, let me just say one, before I take one more question. Building a ferry sounds great. When I first got elected mayor of Boston, we had 2 operators in Boston Harbor. One of them went out of business because there wasn't enough volume. So building a ferry is great to say, okay, we're going to have traffic on the waterfront, but it's not just building the ferry. We actually need to convince people to actually get on the ferry and take the ferry as a mode of transportation. I think that when you're going from point A to point B, people might do it, but I think we really have to encourage people to take that ferry. And the ferry system shouldn't just be East Boston and downtown. You have East Boston, you have Charlestown, you have South Boston, you have Dorchester. Just in Boston alone, you have all of those connections that can be made right there that are actually incredible connections. So I think that we have to encourage people once it's there to take the next step. So thanks, Margaret. Any other questions?
What measures are the city of Boston putting in place to create a carbon-free zone in 2050?
A carbon-free zone for what?
I heard a carbon-free zone will be introduced by 2050, and I was wondering what key measures in place.
A lot of that, you're going to find a lot of the information we have is in Imagine Boston 2030 and also Climate Ready Boston on what we're planning on doing moving forward. So it's the whole plan laid out in that. And then also here today we have the experts in the field that will, 2 gentlemen down here that can go through it forever and talk about how we hit our goals. We don't just throw goals out there, by the way. When we put goals out there, we make sure before the goal goes out there, we back it up. So whatever goal we try to accomplish in the city of Boston, whether it's on the climate, whether it's on housing, whether it's on economic development, we're backing those facts up and figures up with actual real data and real information on how we get there, and we track it as we continue to go through. Yes, please.
In a sense, we're already in the strongest system in the United States. We're inside of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And we've met all of our goals. Massachusetts and Boston have had tremendous economic growth since we joined 10 years ago, while dramatically reducing the amount of carbon, which is why Boston, under the mayor's leadership, is the green monster of the country. So Massachusetts, I think in response to Donald Trump's climate denial, has to be the leader. That's what Boston is doing to lift our goals even more. We're in a partnership right now with New York, with the New England states, with Maryland, with Delaware, and there's a new Democratic governor of New Jersey going to be elected next week. He's going to ignore Chris Christie, who doesn't believe in this system, and he's going to join as well. So we're going to be the leaders, and ultimately that's going to be the model. And in essence, it is a carbon fee, because there is, in fact, a downward pressure on carbon as the price is imposed upon it, but there's still more room for improvement. But if it's going to happen, it'll happen out of this conversation where Massachusetts and Boston say to the other states, here's even a better and smarter way of accomplishing the goal.
Thank you, Senator. I know there may be more questions, but we're getting the signal. I hear there's an election going on and the mayor has to go to other places. He's welcome to stay as long as he wants in East Boston. Yes. Good, and we look forward to working with you in the next 4 years, and you as well, Senator. Just a couple of gifts, guys. Would you make sure that we also give our gifts to? We have 2 great people at the local level. Again, Sal Lamatina, you got another one? Well, okay, your wives don't need it. Okay, good. Okay, great. I want to make sure that they were properly acknowledged, because leadership, again, at all levels. We have great people at the State House. Senator Boncourt couldn't be here, but Adrian's going to be there for us. He said, what do you need? What do I need to write? What legislation we need? I said, we'll talk to our people and we'll see what we can do. Sal, we're going to miss you. You've been a great friend. It was a great, authentic stories to help shape what is the climate issue for all of us today. So in a few moments, after we go through these moments, we will get back to some workshops. We're very happy again to have had you here. And I think we're going to take a few pictures, and that's it. Thank you, everybody.